finally, I'm getting started. I'm Joel Hedegaard, and I don't have Helene with me on stage, as you can see, but there she is. We have done a small little study about men's shed and women's experiences of their men visiting sheds. So the title is Catching Glimpses of Youth, Women's Experience of Their Husband Visiting Men's Shed. So, first, not everyone knows what a men's shed is, I assume. But they are a community-based workshop offering men primarily beyond... Sorry.
No, please don't. Sorry.
I imagine that now it can be the battery.
Before lunch, we spoke about that week, but the women spoke about target groups, and men's shed are really good at targeting one specific group. Elderly men who are so-called low educated in rural areas. So they have set up men's shed during the last 25 years or so. Started in Australia, and it has more or less become some sort of social movement. So we have it in Scandinavian countries, we have it in Portugal, in Faro actually. I have Googled, and in Kenya and a lot of UK countries, or not UK, English, yeah, Ireland, Scotland, and England.
Sorry.
And the point with the men's shed is to offering men beyond paid work to get something to do. It's hard to reach them with formal adult education. They don't want to. They don't want to listen to any teachers who said that they have to learn this and they can't do that and so on. They want to learn by themselves and for themselves. I would say. So it has been quite well researched, at least when it comes to the effect for men. It has been found to benefit their health, quite obvious. It has also been shown to be able to create some sort of new masculinity. The men who attend the sheds, they have a tendency to take care of themselves more. They are more interested in their own health and the other men's health as well. So some sort of empathy is growing within these small communities. Yes. I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to say. There's something about a study, I think. Here we have it, maybe. But the research has focused on the men only, I would say. So we started to think about what about the spouses to the men? What happens to them when their men got something to do and a place to go to?
Okay, sorry.
I recognize that one. Yes. And usually the activities in the shed, I will go back to the purpose of this study, but wood and metalworking, that's the primary activities, because it's directed mainly to men who have worked with their hands in different ways, but also cooking, gardening, singing, and working with computers. So there are activities who are not that male gender also in these sheds. Here you can see some pictures
From New Zealand.
from New Zealand, yes. So it's very much focus, I would say, on doing things with their hands and helping communities out, repair benches and what have you. And I have already gone through this. A lot of sheds. I use the term social movement, and that is, I would say, it's quite accurate. A lot of sheds in Australia, quite a lot in Ireland and UK, and also quite a lot in New Zealand, and few in Europe. We have one in Sweden, this far, and approximately 15 in Denmark. Yeah, and I have also gone through this to a large extent. The sheds have been found to greatly benefit older men's learning, health and well-being, social integration, and to be important for developing a positive male identity, focus on responsibility and care of others as well as themselves. So that's an interesting result from the shed movement. But as I said, it's quite interesting to look at what the sheds have meant for the women, the spouses to these men. So that's why we did this little study. What sort of opportunities have become available for women thanks to their men being active in sheds? That's the question. So we did last year one focus group in New Zealand, and earlier this year we did 4 focus group interviews in Denmark, and we also did 8 individual interviews, but we haven't had the time to include it in this paper, but we will eventually. And it was when we did the first interview in New Zealand, it was very apparent that the women spoke a lot about a freedom, a sense of freedom. So when we had all the empirical material, we already thought about the concept of empowerment, because, well, their sense of freedom. So the content analysis was concept driven. We looked at empowerment, but also on gender. What sort of opportunities for challenging traditional, stereotypical gender roles are emerging. And what we have seen is the first one, men's shed as an enabler of self-fulfillment, independence and freedom for the women. It was very apparent during the focus groups interviews. They were very satisfied with having free time with and by themselves. The men got out of their way they have the opportunity to well, do what they want, actually, and to well, conduct their own interests. And the second part is a majority of the women had a lot of activities that they attend to. So when they left the house earlier, they had some sort of they felt guilty because they left their men at home with nothing to do except use technical artifacts to change the channels on the TV or something. And that was a big relief when they left the house and knew that their man was going to have a nice time, actually. But at the same time, we also saw signs of that men shed as a reinforcer of gender stereotypes for the women. They were the women were extremely involved in the sheds. The first point that they were of course glad that the conversations at home now got fueled by the men's experience at the sheds. They had something new to speak about. That was nice, of course. That's a good thing for relationships, I assume. But it was very much focused on the men's experiences when they spoke within their marriages. We don't have quotes from the interviews, but some of them are quite funny actually. The women say that they don't get syn i väg. Yeah, it's.
They don't get a chance to get their voices heard because
No.
they might dominate the conversation completely.
Yeah. So the men spoke very much about their experiences. And the second part, that the women were very involved in recruiting more shedders, men to the sheds. They actually handed out information papers, blankets, regarding the sheds. They visited libraries and cultural centers and so on in order to recruit more men. So they were very responsible, I would say. And the third part, they were also very engaged in trying to come up with new activities in the sheds. I don't know if the women felt that the men's activities weren't creative enough or intellectually enough, or I don't know, but they had a lot of ideas. Visiting museums and so on. That's not the point with sheds, but still, they have that idea, a lot of them. One of the challenges in maybe not only marriages between elderly couples, but in general, is that women, I don't know if you know this, but have a tendency to be somewhat more responsible for the social, emotional aspects in a relationship. They are more responsible for keeping up with the social contacts, having contact with health care and so on. And the idea was to lift some of the burden from their shoulders and replace the responsibility at the blokes at the sheds instead. But as we can see, that hasn't happened, not to a very large extent. So when we discussed the result, we have looked at so-called internal and external well-being, and we can definitely see that they have increased internal well-being, definitely, and that they, due to their men visiting shed, experience more retirement freedom. They have more freedom. They have expressed that very, very clearly, I would say. And they have more focus to, more time to focus on their self-fulfillment. And to some extent, the responsibility for the socio-emotional aspects have been taken over by newfound friends at the sheds, but only to some extent. As I mentioned earlier, there are some feelings of responsibility regarding health for their own sake, but also for the other people there, or the other men there. So they are definitely concerned for and with each other, I would say. But still, it's to a large extent the women who have a big responsibility. But we also discuss the well-being from an external perspective, and that's linked to their men and their increased well-being that tends to rub off on them. So they are extremely happy with their men's increasing well-being and happiness. It was actually quite difficult during the interviews to get the women to speak about what it has meant for them. They were very fond of speaking about what the experience at the shed has meant for their husbands. And the final part of the discussion is focusing on the reproduction of the gender roles. And we call it some sort of relocation of their social emotional responsibility from their homes to the sheds. They are still very responsible, as we saw previously. They do take practical action in order to get more men attending the sheds, and they also have ideas about specific activities in the sheds. So it's very double, I would say. They have a sense of freedom, the women definitely, but they have also a new way of showing responsibility. And the individual interviews add to this, because I would say that the main result from the individual interviews was how much work the women did in order for them to get their men attending sheds in the first place. That's quite interesting. So maybe they were fully aware that it would create a sense of freedom for them. Maybe they weren't that aware that it would also mean more and different types of responsibility for the social emotional aspects of their marriage. Yes, that was pretty much it. Do you have a question?